would you do if you saw a pair of rhinos mating 20 feet in front of you? In 2009, I went to Namibia for a friend's wedding, and I decided to extend my trip and take an overland safari up to the game reserve at Etosha Pan. And 16 intrepid explorers from all nationalities climbed into the Unimog, essentially an oversized four-wheel drive people carrier with about as many comforts as you'd expect on a budget holiday. And I squeezed my knees and my bag into what was soon to become my seat. The thing about these trips is that when you sit down in a seat, that becomes your seat, and it stays your seat for the entire duration of the trip, regardless of whether or not you connect and bond with the person sitting next to you. Next to me was Doc. Doc was 86 years old. He had been in Namibia back when Namibia was Southwest Africa, and hell, he'd probably been there since it was a German colony. But one of the first things Doc said to me was how bored he was with his life. All of his friends had died, and he spent his days at home watching soap operas. So, despite the fact that he'd been on this trip 5 times already, something was better than nothing at home alone. And my heart went out to him, and I thought, oh, bless him, an 86, go on ya. And then he said in his thick German Afrikaans accent, I used to be a psychiatrist at the asylum, back when we just threw meat over the walls. We had a 7-hour drive to the park, and Doc read his book the whole way, and I was lucky enough to get the honor of being his roommate. And these 2 twin beds and mosquito nets and these awful floral covers awaited us. And just as I was putting my bag down ready to go to the swimming pool, Doc set some things out on our shared night table between the beds. He put down his spectacles, he put down his flashlight, he put down his book, and he put down a square milk carton with the top cut off. To which he nodded and proudly said, I don't get up to pee in the night anymore. And the dusk fell and the dinner bell went, and I found Doc, and he was a bit wobbly on his walk to dinner, and I lent him an arm thinking, he's 86, he's had a hell of a day, not knowing he had also finished a bottle of Cinzano Rosso. And dinner was the South African traditional food. We had a braai and pap, you can think of barbecue and overcooked grits. And the conversation around the tables was super lively, until it was interrupted with this whoomphing sound, as Doc fell face forward into his dinner. Whoomph. Everybody looked at me. Like, Doc, Doc! The yelling didn't help. Doc! The shaking didn't help. Silence. And I summoned all of my medical knowledge at that stage and declared Doc dead. More specifically, I said, I think he's on his way. Now, I don't recommend this as a strategy, but I can say that it helped. The 2 Australians on the other side of the table leapt into action, revealing that they were police officers with some medical training, and soon Doc was lying down on the ground in the rescue position, and his airway was clear, and we were hovering over this unfolding medical situation. And 60 seconds later, Doc just sat up again and said, I didn't drink enough water. So he finished off a gallon of water, remedying his self-diagnosed dehydration, and ate the rest of his dinner as if the night nothing had happened. I don't know if Doc used the milk carton that night, but he sure snored like the living dead. For the next 3 days, we drove around the park looking at most exquisite wildlife. We saw this herd of elephants giving each other a mud bath, caked in white. And Doc sat next to me reading his book. We saw this pride of lions chewing on a carcass. Doc sat next to me reading his book. We saw rhinos mating. Do you have any idea how rare that is? You know, Doc glanced out of the corner of his eye and then sat reading his book. He read his book the entire way back to the city of Windhoek, where we started, and we drove up to his front door to let him out. And in true Doc fashion, he closed his book, stood up, and left the truck without so much as a word of goodbye, leaving 15 of us perplexed about the enigma of Doc. But you know, all these years later, I don't remember a single one of those 15 people. But Doc is right here in my heart and sitting next to me reading his book.